What we've got here is
the I Just Saw podcast. Welcome to your favorite uncut, uncensored, spoiler-filled movie review. I'm your host, Matt Brando. I just saw The Dark Tower, and actually, I'm joined today by my very good friend, John Rodriguez. John, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. We both have differing opinions a little bit on the film. We saw it last night. If you don't know who John is, it's the first time I'm having John on the show. John is a fantastic writer.
Oh, thanks, man.
He is an avid reader. You can't be a good writer without being a frequent page turner.
Definitely true.
And I see John all the time outside the movie. I saw him outside the theater yesterday with his iPad. He's always with his iPad. Just like Stephen King, actually. There's a photo.
That was listening to book 2 of The Dark Tower.
Yeah, so what happened was I rolled up on you, and I was like, gonna, mess with you because scary movie about to see possibly. And I was like, wait, you're playing an iPad game. And you're like, no, look.
I'm really reading a book, I swear.
Yeah, you showed you showed off your iPod or your iPhone with one of the audiobooks, and you had your headphones in. I was like, man, how do you do it? Like Stephen King, someone took a photograph of him at a Red Sox game, and he was reading some book. Like, if you're always into reading, you're going to be a good writer.
No doubt. I wonder if Stephen King was reading Stephen King at the Boston Red Sox game.
That would be pretty meta.
Totally. Well, the Dark Tower series gets really meta as it gets farther in the books.
Okay, so just transitioning right into it. Have you read all the Dark Tower novels?
All 7 multiple times.
Multiple times. So you're well versed, not just with King, but with this series.
I mean, honestly, I would say that it is probably, next to The Lord of the Rings, the most influential book series in my life.
Yeah, I've heard from my friend Jimmy. I think this is like his creme de la creme. Like, this is his, okay. So that's probably why it was maybe disappointing for people who read the novels.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be the case because this film doesn't really track in any way with what came before. It's kind of an amalgamation of 2 of the books in the series. Number 2, which is called The Drawing of the Three, and number 6, which is called Song of Susanna. And that's kind of a questionable choice right off the bat because Song of Susanna is inarguably the worst book in the series. Nothing even close to it. So the fact that you're choosing to draw a lot of material, all the stuff with the vampires and the rat men that we hear about, that's all drawn from book 6. And it's just kind of a terrible book. It's really the worst of the series. I'm sorry, I wanted to say something nice, but it's not very good. Now, The Drawing of the Three, which is the other book that they pull from, that is a great book.
Yeah.
But a lot of the parts that are great about that book, which is Roland getting his whole group together. He pulls 3 people in from modern day New York to his world. And one of those is a junkie, Eddie Dean. And one of them is a schizophrenic woman. She's Odetta Holmes by day. She's Detta Walker by night. A black woman in a wheelchair who suddenly becomes very strange and mysterious and violent when she changes to Detta. And then also he draws the boy Jake. But in the film, we dispense with Eddie, we dispense with Odetta Detta, and it's simply Jake. And it really becomes Jake's story, not even Roland's story. Jake is the star of this film.
Jake kind of is, but I think what I took away from it was that this is actually like Idris Elba's movie, maybe, because I felt like it was maybe more so focused on him. Like, he had the problem, he had the arc. Yeah, the kid was like, he was our main viewpoint.
Okay, so you're saying that it's the conduit. We're seeing Roland's story, and Jake is just the conduit through which we're seeing Roland's story.
Yeah, I think that's how I at least interpreted it.
Okay, and I looked at it a little bit more as we've left Roland behind, and this is more of almost like a young adult story now, where it's the boy is the chosen one, and it's up to him to kind of convince old man Grumpus Roland to start getting going with it. Yeah, it's really like that kind of a story, which, if you think about it, kind of tracks with Akiva Goldsman's career, and Akiva Goldsman being the primary writer on this film. He's a guy that's, in recent years done a lot of young adult stories, like he's doing Insurgent, and he's doing the Fifth Wave. Yeah, I know, and you make that sound, and that's because really that's what Akiva Goldsman's career has kind of become. It's become, a lot of Rings, Transformers, Batman and Robin. It's just a lot of shit. and so when you see his name prominently featured among the 4 writers credited on this film, that does not imbue me with a lot of confidence right off the bat.
Yeah, there's a writer for one of the Transformers films. I think he's done like all the Transformers movies, and he's done a couple other films. And I look at those other films, I'm like, yeah, I can see why I didn't really like one of them. I wanted to do a couple questions related to the book stuff.
Sure.
I have to look through them. I just lost it. Yes, here we go. Mike Tiger, 24 TB. Maybe he's a Tampa Bay fan. Once I heard the movie was a sequel to the novels, I lost most of my interest. Is the movie a sequel?
That's a great question. I'm going to give you 2 answers there. And one is going to be what we were told in the lead up to the film. And then the other is what actually is true in the film. What we were told in the lead up to the film is that, yes, it is a sequel to the books. And I'm going to go just delve a little bit into a spoiler here. So if you haven't read the books, this is a spoiler. You go through all 7 novels, and at the end of the 7 novels, Roland has been questing to reach the Dark Tower. That's been his whole purpose. He finally reaches that point at the end of book 7, gets to the top of the tower, hoping to find the great answer that's going to save his world and our world and all the worlds. And he opens the door, and what he sees is the desert that he started in book 1. And he realizes that he has reached this point over and over and over again. He's been here 1,000 times, and each time he reaches the top of the tower, he's failed, and he has to start all over again. And it's this horrible mind fuck. It's like, are you kidding me? I've been following this guy for 25 years. This book series has been going on, and he's got to start all over again. Well, what's interesting, what they sold us on in the lead up to the film was that this isn't going to be a straight adaptation of the books. Actually, it's going to pick up after the last book, yes, with Roland restarting his adventure, but this time, because of the events of the book series, Roland will have with him the artifact that is called the Horn of Eld. And this is going to be the key artifact that he needs to reach the tower and this time win through. So that's really exciting, because for all those people that went through the whole book series all this time and knowing that he didn't succeed in essence, and he has a chance to win this time. Oh, that's awesome. I can't wait to see how that plays out. And the answer is it doesn't. At all, because they just don't bother dealing with. You never hear about the Horn of Eld. You never hear about any of this stuff. It's just not even there. As far as I can tell you, in the film version, it reads as just sort of a smushed up book 2 and book 6, and does not play in any way like a continuation of the series.
Now, it's really tough. I guess comic book movies have the same issue. It's like, well, what do you do? Do you are you faithful to the source material? Are you not going to piss off people who love it? Or do you want to try be creative and do something new, which you might piss off the people who love the source material? And I heard actually that apparently this is going to be continued not as more film sequels, but as a TV series. Did you hear this? Oh,
yeah. Oh, believe me. I was so excited. I don't know how much you've traced the long and convoluted history here, but it's a really, really fascinating history from where we started with this project to what we ended up with. And it starts actually with Bad Robot and J.J. Abrams.
Really?
This is, way, way back in 2007. This would have been about 3 years after the book series wrapped up. So it was still pretty hot and pretty fresh. And King had a very famous meeting with J.J. and Damon Lindelof. Ooh. And they pitched it to him. And, this was going to be something that happened, but it just never quite went together. And obviously, Abrams went on to Star Trek and eventually, Star Wars. So you can't say that didn't go well for him. Where things really get interesting is 3 years later, where the project has moved to Universal. And this is when what you're talking about starts. So by this point, we have Akiva Goldsman and Ron Howard are the two guys. Yeah, they're the ones that are shepherding this. And they have pitched this notion of 3 films to cover the series. But what's really exciting is that in between these 3 films, they are going to run a television series. Ooh. Yeah, so it's going to be, we're going to pick 3 big moments from the book series. Those will be the films.
Right.
But in between, we're going to fill in. And guess what? We're going to actually take the actors that are in the films, and they're going to be appearing. They're going to sign on not just for the films, they're going to sign on for the television show as well.
That's epic.
Oh, yeah. I mean, at the time, we didn't have, Agents Marvel, right. the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and all that stuff. Yeah. So this was really revolutionary. It's like, wow, I'd be amazing. Well, it obviously fell through and Universal didn't do it. So then it moved over to Warner Brothers. And that also changed where we had Javier Bardem was signed on back when it was Universal to be Roland.
Interesting.
Then, yeah, he fell away at that point. So now we moved to Warner Brothers. We still have Goldsman and Ron Howard. And now it's Russell Crowe.
Huh.
Yeah, being talked at as played as Roland. And they're still talking about doing the television series. And if anything, it's gotten more exciting because now Warner Brothers is obviously hooked up with HBO. They're under the same, umbrella company here. Mm-hmm. So now they're talking about having the series playing on HBO. Can you imagine? Very much an R-rated property. I mean, Dark Tower is such an R-rated series. You want that kind of cable primetime network, the station of Game of Thrones, the station of The Wire, and you're going to put the Dark Tower series on that. Oh, wow, this is great. And then it fell through again. And this time we lost Howard, we lost Crowe, we kept Akiva Goldsman, so there's the booby prize. And so sorry, Akiva. And then we moved to Sony. And Sony basically says, yeah, okay, I guess we would do this, but we don't really want to pay a lot for it.
Yeah.
So can you make it for $60 million? And yeah, I don't know about that television thing either. That sounds kind of thing. So at this point where we are is Sony's put this unambitious $60 million film out with the talk that, hey, if it catches fire, yes, we might consider doing the TV series. And apparently they even have Idris Elba signed on for possibly reprising his role if this was to go to a TV series. Ooh. But I'm going to tell you, I highly doubt we'll ever see it because I doubt the box office will justify it.
Yeah, it's kind of sad. Now, I'm just going off script here, off notes. You said about it's a very rated R book. Would you have felt if this movie was rated R, would it be better?
That's a good question. If this movie that we saw last night was given a little bit more gore or a little bit more swearing, honestly, I doubt it would have made much difference. It's so unambitious as it is. I don't see where a little bit of gore, a little bit of swearing would have made much difference. It certainly lost its edge, but the PG-13ifying of it was just one component in a whole slew of choices that led from the original script that had a little bit of ambition to, and we'll talk about that eventually, I think, to what we ended up getting, which was a 95-minute meh.
So talk about it right now. Let's put that in the notes. There's an earlier draft of the screenplay. How many pages was it compared to this 95-minute movie we got?
It was actually about 30 pages longer. It was about 120 pages, yeah. And so it's about a 2-hour film. Well, incidentally, I understand that there was an earlier version that was 150 pages. Wow. So about 2.5 hours. So we eventually got from a 2.5-hour draft to a 1.5-hour draft. What I can tell you about the draft that I read, it is 120 pages. It's dated August 8th, 2014. The credited writers are Akiva Goldsman and Jeff Pinkner. And the final version, the one that we see in the theater, it has 2 extra writers, including director Nikolai Arce. I actually don't know how to pronounce his last name.
I don't know his name either.
So sorry, Nikolai, but so it is a Goldsman draft. It is at that time still an R-rated film. Huh. So you're going to see F-bombs. You're going to see messy deaths. It's definitely, what you see on the screen is definitely a lot more watered down than what's in that script.
Yeah.
There's a lot more weirdness still that was retained from the book series. A lot of references to the rundown world of Roland's world, which in the books is kind of this post-apocalyptic pseudo-Earth. You never see that in the film. I mean, none of that comes through, but there's like all these things, like there's a post-apocalyptic Citgo gas station. There's a saloon in Roland's world that serves Nescafe because there's no more real coffee anymore. There's a ritualistic toast that involves old Miller beer cans. So there's all kinds of I know it's wacky and it's strange, but that wackiness is part of what makes the Dark Tower series so appealing.
Right.
Some of that's in the script originally. None of that's in the film. I don't want to pitch you on the notion that the old script was some kind of amazing work, because it also had a lot of problems. Probably the biggest problem is the opening is very herky-jerky, where they're trying to introduce the characters. You start off with Jake. The focus is on Jake at the start. And you remember in the film where there's that scene where Jake is like talking to a psychiatrist?
Yeah.
Yeah. They start with that, and it goes on for like 8 pages. Huh. Because we need a lot of exposition. Yeah. there is shit tons of exposition in this. And then after that, we cut to Roland. And now we have a story from The Gunslinger, the first book in the Dark Tower series, where Roland arrives at the town of Tull, and he meets a girl, Alice, who becomes his lover during this episode. And eventually it ends with the Man in Black poisoning the minds of the Tull townspeople, and Roland having to mow down everyone in the town, including his lover, because they've all fallen to the Dark Man's sway. Yeah, so that's shown in the script, obviously not in the book. Also shown in the script is the part where Roland loses 2 of his fingers that are bitten off by these strange monsters that come out of the ocean that are called lobstrosities. They actually bite off 2 of his fingers, right? Which you can imagine would be very negative for somebody who makes his living by shooting guns.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that outside the theater. I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah. And that was one of the things that made the book so cool. King is constantly throwing challenges in the path of his, you're a gunslinger, you're the greatest gunslinger that ever lived. You just lost 2 fingers. What do you do? Exactly. All these kinds of choices you make. None of that is in the film. None of that's there at all. Anything else that I wanted to mention? Aside from the hard choices, then, of course, the greatest hard choice of all. Here I will get into a little bit of spoilers. So in the book, in the first book, Roland is all about the Dark Tower. He ends up meeting Jake, who has been pulled into his world, and he falls in love with Jake. He really cares about the boy. But at this time, Roland is tracking Walter, the Man in Black, because he believes that if he catches Walter, he can find the location of the Dark Tower, which is his ultimate quest. Mm-hmm. So there comes a moment in the book where Roland has a choice. Jake is hanging by his fingertips, and the Man in Black is escaping. And Roland can either let Jake drop and go after the Man in Black, or he can save Jake and possibly lose the tower. And he chooses the tower, and he lets Jake drop to his death.
Wow.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, that's
very hard.
He is a hard dude. Yeah, so this is the big moment. That's the big sacrifice that he makes. We will again see Jake in book 2. It's a strange, I won't bother explaining it, but Jake does return. Still, that's what happens in book 1. So obviously we never saw this in the film. The script version has a different configuration of Jake's sacrifice. And now this is when we are going into spoilers for the film version. So the film version is all about these kids that are being held captive by the Man in Black, and he's using their psychic power to launch sort of like brain beams at the Dark Tower to try to bring it crumbling down for reasons which aren't very well explained. But okay, apparently Jake's like the master psychic dude. He has the shine. That's a reference to, we have a reference to another King book, The Shine. Here. They always talk about the shine. He's very gifted. So the idea is if only the Man in Black can seat Jake in this chair that he has, he can harness his psychic power and shoot the mother of all brain beams at the Dark Tower and just destroy it in one fell swoop. So in the book, in the film, the Man in Black does get Jake in the chair, and Roland saves him with a little bit of shenanigans with bullets. In the original script, again, the Man in Black gets Jake in the chair, and Roland realizes that he has a choice. He can either let Jake live and we all die because the tower is going down, or he can sacrifice Jake and keep the tower up. And so he shoots Jake dead instead of allowing the Man in Black to harness his psychic powers. And there's the idea again of the sacrifice, how much this guy has sacrificed for his tower.
Wow, that's some dark shit. I can totally see like some kind of studio executive being like, the kid falling off the cliff, the gunslinger not choosing to save him, we're not including that.
And you want $150 million? Oh, and you want it rated R?
Right.
Yeah, not so much.
Right. I guess that's a great interlude to one of the questions I have here is Pit Meat Boy and a little bit of Enrique asks, like, what target audience is this for? And I'm thinking, I don't know, that's tough. Like, who likes action movies that are also weird films?
That's a good question. I'm going to be interested to hear your answer, because I know you had a little bit of a different take on me as to like who was the primary character here. Was it Roland or was it Jake? Here's my answer. My answer is it's not for the fans of the book. Let's just say that. That's clear. I think if it's for anybody, it's probably for people who really dig the modern young adult book to film adaptation. If you're the kind of person that really is into Divergent, or if you're the Mortal Instruments, or any of these kinds of, young adult book to film adaptations, you're probably the target audience, because it is, for me at least, a film that's very Jake-centric. It's all about I'm the chosen one boy, and a little wish fulfillment. Wouldn't it be nice, if I'm the audience member watching? Wouldn't it be nice if I was like Jake and could be drawn? Yeah, that's probably it. If you're just looking for a little bit of gunplay, we do eventually, and that is one of the nice things I do want to say about it. We do eventually get some nice gunplay in the film. Yeah, that's true. We get a little bit of humor. There's some great fish out of water stuff a little later on too. That's fun. So I would say if you're a person who's just looking for a good time, or more specifically, if you're a fan of the young adult adaptations of the modern era, that's who I think this is for. What about you? What do you think?
I thought it was just like for maybe I could totally see it being young adult. I thought it was for like maybe people who like just weird, definitely odd films, like really weird worlds, and then if you like a little bit of action, it's there for you. But I wanted to build off of what you said. I wanted to say something about Valerian. I did not see it, but you did.
Unfortunately.
Sorry. So I know. Actually, quick story to the people. I saw War for the Planet twice because of Chris, our friend, mutual friend, did a review and said it was and then you said no. So I want to ask you, because you've seen it and I did not. Would you say it's almost for like the same, because it's a young adult, would it be for kind of the same audience?
That's interesting that you say that because in a lot of ways, Valerian gives us a little bit of what both of us are saying. Valerian definitely plays out a lot like a young adult, even though the leads are pitched as these full-grown, very capable adults. If you look at the actors playing them, they are totally teenage-esque in every way, shape, or form. Yeah. So it definitely has that young adult vibe to it, no question. And then, like you were saying, with the weird world building, it is like that. But oddly, I came out of both films giving them the same kind of C- grade.
Yes.
But if you put the gun to my head, no pun intended there, if you put the gun to my head and said, which one of these films did you prefer? I'm going to go and say I preferred Valerian. And the reason I say it, I know. I would never have thought I would say that. But Valerian reaches its C- through a whole bunch of really frustrating, stupid elements. And a few really cool, really colorful, really creative choices. So there's some stuff there's like, that's cool. I love that. And other stuff you're like, God, I hate that. That's terrible. Yeah. And then the Dark Tower reaches its C- through a whole lot of, that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I can agree with that 100%. I'm probably going to forget it, but I came out of the film. I was like, yeah, it's good. I'll give it a recommend to people. I'll give it a 6 out of 10. And I was texting my friend the flick pick. He's like, well, that's a mediocre score. I'm like, but I still think it's a decent film. It's like, it's not shittily made.
I wouldn't agree that a 6 out of 10 just means that it's no good. I mean, 6 out of 10 tells me it's above average.
Exactly. That was pretty much perfect. It's above average. Like the story is It was technically well made. Let's go into real quickly the directing. What'd you think? I thought it was pretty good.
I thought it was serviceable. I'm not familiar with him. A Royal Affair, I think, is this guy's previous film, and I did not see that. Did you see that?
I did not see any of his works, but I was just watching and be like, that's not bad. Maybe because I just came out of Ghost in the Shell, which is a great story, but I thought the directing was, But
I see what you're saying, yeah.
But I thought this was great camera work in this one, so.
Yeah, I have to admit that that's an area where I might almost have to step aside and bow to you because I'm not probably the best eye for directing. I know Chris often talks about that in his review. He has a great eye for that. Yeah. You have a great eye for that. I'm probably a little bit more on the writing side.
Right.
To the best of what I saw, I thought it was serviceable. Uh-huh. Mainly, but there was nothing that I saw that just like made me say, "Wow, I need to see this guy's films," again. Yeah,
that probably builds off of it just being above average type of film rather than it like blowing you away.
Right.
So we'll go into the performances. So we got Rick Fick wants to know about him. Movie review Ben wants to know about Matthew McConaughey as well as John Young. So like to ask, is Matthew McConaughey great or badly over the top as the Man in Black?
I would more say that he's surprisingly fun. He brings a little bit of needed levity to the film. It's not exactly a laugh riot,
right,
by any means. Yeah, sure, he's doing a little scenery chewing. Yeah, but you know what? He's reasonable in this. In fact, I actually found myself kind of tuning in a little bit more whenever he stepped onto the screen. Yeah. He kind of brought a little bit of a presence to him. I liked McConaughey in this. I might even go so far as to say that I was a little bit more drawn to him than I was to Idris Elba.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to say that there was something wrong with Elba's performance.
Yeah.
It's just more of a standard kind of a world-weary, veteran. It doesn't really have a very big range. But for me, McConaughey brought some much-needed energy. I liked him.
Yeah, I like both of the leads here. I really liked Idris Elba. I think he's a fantastic actor. He did a fantastic job here. Like I said, I really latched onto him.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've seen someone hold a gun and shoot it, and like really well, like the most authentic. I think this is like the most authentic portrayal I've seen of anyone that's like, oh wow, that guy really is a gunslinger.
I can see he definitely has that one scene in where he's just, his heartbeat slowing down. He's not even looking at what he's shooting at, and you're just watching that gun steady in his hand, and then boom, blows the guy away.
The great thing about that is they showed that in like a TV spot or a trailer, and it's quite short, but they didn't milk it too long, and they didn't make it too short in the film, I think.
Yeah, it was actually the first time in the film that we got to see Roland do something amazing with his guns. Prior to that, he just kind of, he's a guy with guns. So he's like, oh, he's a gunslinger. What does he do? And this was that first moment where he did something where you stood up and said, oh, wow, yeah, you really are good.
Yeah. So just tie into like the backstory of these two guys. McConaughey really doesn't have one. He's kind of just evil. But the gunslinger has a little bit of a backstory with his Dennis Haysbert dad.
That's interesting. That's another thing that's really interesting from the original script. So the Dennis Haysbert with the dad thing, that's not there in the original script. That was something added in the new version. Huh. And I didn't think it added anything. To me, if you had removed that scene from the film, I would not have missed it in the slightest. I guess the reason behind it is we're supposed to feel like, okay, so that's why Roland hates the Man in Black. Wants to take him down because the Man in Black killed his father. But do we really even need that? I mean, honestly, I don't even think I care. Roland is supposed to be a bit of a mystery. I don't know that I need his motivations spelled out that much. But on the flip side, I was wondering, who the heck is Walter, the Man in Black? Who is this guy? And why does he want to bring the Dark Tower down when we are told that if the Dark Tower collapses, it's going to result in all these demons pouring into our world from the nether regions of space? So why would this guy who looks like, Matthew McConaughey, looks like a regular old human being, why would he want demons pouring into this world? Is there any reason? And what's interesting is that, well, of course, in the book, we do know why. And that is also addressed in the original script. What we learn in the original script is that Walter is just really a minion. He is not the big bad. The big bad is this entity that is called the Crimson King. Huh. Yeah, and I don't know, maybe you spotted it in the scene where Jake is in the manor, in the old dilapidated manor in New York before he crosses over to Roland's world. There was some graffiti. Oh, right before he's attacked by that wood monster.
Oh yeah, was that a demon, right?
Yeah, it was they call it the house demon.
Interesting.
Yeah. There was a little graffiti on the wall, and the graffiti reads, "All hail the Crimson King."
Right.
And that's the only reference we basically get in this film to the Crimson King. Well, the Crimson King is the big bad of the Dark Tower series, and Walter is merely the Crimson King's servant. And the reason that Walter is doing what he's doing is that the Crimson King has promised him that if Walter destroys the tower and allows the Crimson King into all our worlds, that the Crimson King will reward Walter with rulership of Keystone Earth.
Wow.
So that's his motivation. And I desperately wanted some reason for why Matthew McConaughey is doing all the stuff he's doing. We never get it in the film at all.
Dude, you just said all that, and I wanted to see that in this film.
Yeah, I know. There's so much left on the editing floor.
Oh, man, that sucks. I want to go back to the beginning of your dialect there. 2 days ago, Variety produced. I apologize for my dog. 2 days ago, Variety.
Mine too.
Yeah. We like animals. We're loving people. 2 days ago, Variety had just a typical news article, movies nowadays, but it's very interesting that Dark Tower had test screenings, and they actually probably added in some backstory. Apparently, there's this world building that was happening. Mm-hmm. And nobody knew what was going on. So I'm assuming they probably added in that Dennis Haysbert dad thing, as a reshoot, quite late in the production.
I think you're absolutely right. I'm very confident that scene is you have correctly identified it as one of several reshoots, because apparently the reshoots were extensive.
Wow.
And yeah, I think you're right about that. And the other thing is that they made a big point in the reshoots is that there was a lot of exposition stripped out. They said, which may seem strange because there's already a ton of exposition in the film.
Right.
But you say, so you stripped out? Yeah, and they're not joking, because if you look at the script that I read, which is, again, clocking at 120 pages, wow, there is just tons of exposition in this script. It's all over the place, riddled with exposition. I mean, Jake with the psychiatrist. There's a whole bunch of scenes. Do you know how in the film, Walter, the man in black, he has kind of a sidekick with him, sort of a bald-headed guy. If you look at the credits, he's credited as Sayer. He was like the guy that.
Is that Jackie Earl? No.
Yeah. Right, exactly. That guy has a much, much bigger role in the script that I read. And I can't say that it was a great role. I mean, basically, his role was to serve as an exposition board. It's just him and Walter like saying, well, as you know, Walter, well, as you know, Sayer. And there's a whole bunch of this back and forth. I mean, it goes on for pages. So, I mean, there's no question that they needed to get rid of that. That wasn't going to be, obviously you could tell why people were, not liking it at the test screenings, because it's half an hour of exposition. But when you just strip it all out, you end up with the opposite problem, which is what the hell is going on?
Yeah. Exactly. There's some weird things. I have to add this to the Matthew McConaughey thing. Like, maybe because I asked about the rated R thing. Like, he has two people like eat each other. He has like a randomly grab. This is the only one that confused me, because I think because it's PG-13, they couldn't show more of it, or they had to move the camera upwards. They couldn't see, or let the audience look in. He randomly grabs that like really good looking girl by like the face and like burns it, but I thought she was gonna die.
Yeah, and then later you just see her with like a little mark on her face or something. Yeah, it's like, what happened there?
Yeah.
Well, heck, I mean, for that matter, why are these guys even called rat men and vampires? Like, I have no idea.
Honestly, I didn't even know what the hell they were. I thought at first they're like some kind of like werewolf, and then they had the skin over it. I was like, okay. And then I guess my friend Siggleclaw, I'll get into his questions later. Are these known as the can toys or can ties?
Oh yeah, okay, right, from the book 6 and whatnot. Yes, that's right, and that's why if you've read the books, you do know why they're called the rat men and the vampires, because yes, and literally they're wearing the flesh. They're wearing flesh over their real, figures and stuff. And you kind of get a hint at that with the idea that these guys have seams in the back of their necks, so you see these little incisions there. But you never really even see what's underneath. You never even get a moment to see, what's underneath. I never saw a rat face underneath. No. Did you?
Well, you saw the one guy at the beginning. Remember?
Just a little bit of some kind of skin underneath his skin.
Well, it was in like the evil lair thing when McConaughey showed up. He goes, "Hey, put on a skin. You're not some about self-respect."
Did you actually see a snout? Did you see?
I think you saw his face for like a couple seconds. It was it looked like kind of like a rat face. I was like, "What the hell is that? It's not a werewolf?" I was like, "I don't know what the hell's going on." And so like, I guess, maybe people, they'll go in this film, if they don't know shit about the books, they'll be like, what?
Right. And then Sayer and his right-hand man, he's apparently a vampire. And there's the vampires also in Song of Susanna, book 6. And I know I never saw anything. In fact, that Sayer guy was actually out in bright daylight. So if he's a vampire, I don't know what kind of, he's not adhering to any vampire rules that I know.
I did not know there's vampires in this film at all. I thought there's just
I learned that by watching the credits, so that's why you stay till the end.
Yeah. See, it's like you see the film, and I was like, I didn't see any vampire shit at all. It's just evil people and rat people wearing skins. But
it is the Cantoi. In answer to the question, they are the Cantoi. Yes.
So we talked a little bit about kind of the film being all over the place. So you mostly got into it. So Julian Minaj wants to know how the pacing was. Was it choppy and kind of hard to keep up like Suicide Squad, or did it flow nicely?
Choppy. Really choppy. The pacing is breakneck. Once they stripped out all the exposition, which again, they did need to strip that out, they also had to add something back in. They didn't. The mandate clearly was fast, faster, fastest.
Yes, fast.
And yeah, it's just fast. I mean, especially it's really obvious at the beginning where you're just blowing through stuff and it's like, what happened? Where are we? What's going on?
Yeah.
It's so breakneck you don't have a moment to even stop and really understand what's going on. Really, really choppy pacing. This is one of the poorer edit jobs I've seen this year in a film. It's just, it has no rhythm whatsoever.
It's very, very fast. I would not say it's worse than Suicide Squad. Suicide Squad was
yeah, that's something else.
That was so bad. Actually, a real quick story, side note. I sat next to you for Suicide Squad last August or so. Oh my God. I wanted that film to be really great. And I sat next to you, and then like I forget which scene it was. And then I said like, "Oh my God!" And then you go, "Yes." And then I was like, I turned to you. I was like, "Yeah, this movie's pretty bad." And then you go like, "Yes, it is." I was like, thank God I'm not the only one that thinks this.
Through clenched teeth, yes, it is.
It was sad. It was very disappointing for me.
It really was.
But real quickly, the trailers. John the Flickinger asks, "Was it as bad as the trailers looked?" Honestly, I thought the trailers looked good.
Did you?
I thought the trailers looked really good. It got my ass in the seat to see it tonight or last night.
That's it. Because, of course, you're not coming from a book perspective.
No.
So when you see the trailer, I mean, it really needs to sell you. It's not like me where I've bought my ticket already just because I know the series. You have to come into that thing being sold on the trailer. And so it worked for you.
Absolutely. Two of my favorite actors. There seems to be some action. And then it looked kind of weird. And it was originally by Stephen King. Fuck yeah, you're going to get me in the seat. But coming out of the theater, I mean, it was fucking weird. But I can still recommend it to people. So, I mean, I don't know. I thought the trailers were all right for me. What'd you think of the trailers?
I thought the trailer was a little bit uneven, to be honest. And I think that was actually a very accurate representation of the final product. It's, you kind of look at it and you're like, well, this seems sort of interesting. I don't know. I don't know what's going on exactly. It seems like a little mishmash of Western elements and fantasy elements and modern and maybe that will become clear when I go see the film. And the answer is no, not really. It'll still just be a mishmash of elements.
Oh, man. So we hinted on a little bit, but is there good character development? Jake Wazowski asks.
In my feeling, not so much, honestly. I never really got to know. In answer to that, I think I'm going to talk about what for me was probably the single worst change from the books.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah. In the books, and I think I touched on this earlier, Roland is all about the Dark Tower. I mean, that's it. I mean, that's him. That's Roland in a nutshell. He does everything. Just in the first book alone, he screws a woman that he doesn't care about because he wants information to track Walter to get to the Dark Tower. He seduces a 300-pound woman to get information for the Dark Tower.
Jeez.
He fucks a succubus to I mean, and then never mind that he actually lets a boy die. So yeah, I mean, it's like he is driven to get to this tower. It is his all-encompassing goal. And to me, that's interesting because you want to see, just now we're just talking writing theory here, but from a pure theory standpoint, you want to see your protagonist care about something. You want to see him be driven for something. Yeah. So in the film, and this is true both in the theatrical film and also in the script version that I read. It is true in both versions. They have stripped Roland of his desire to go for the tower. In both cases, he's basically like, yeah, tower, I give up on the tower. I don't care. All he really cares about at this point is getting revenge on the Man in Black. We don't even know why in the original script version, but in the film, it's because the Man in Black killed his dad. And so he's after the Man in Black, and that's pretty much it. But then that makes him kind of look stupidly short-sighted because since we know that if the tower falls, all the worlds, including his own world, is going to be engulfed in darkness. And you're just sitting here trying to kill like one of the Crimson King's minions. I mean, that just seems kind of pointless. Yeah. So it's almost like, and then what it becomes because of this choice, the new configuration of the story is it's up to Jake to kind of come in and pick Roland up. Like, come on, Roland, you can do it. You can still go for the Dark Tower. And it's basically up to him to convince Roland to go establish his quest for the Dark Tower. So it almost plays out like a Rocky sequel. Where, it's like Rocky is now kind of like on the tail end of his career, and his trainer's like, come on, Rock, you gotta get up for the last fight, and that works in a sequel to Rocky because we've already had earlier films to establish Rocky's character. Yes. We love Rocky. We're on Rocky's side, so it's okay there. But here we are not on Roland's side. We don't know him, and so if Roland is basically telling us, I don't care about the tower, why should we care about the tower?
Yeah.
So in terms of his development, I didn't really feel like I got much development at all from him. It was all the development was coming from Jake's side, which is why I felt it was much more his story than Roland's.
Yeah, two things. First is, about Spider-Rico. Spider-Rico, he's a bum. And the second one,
you do that much better than I do.
Oh, thank you. I do a decent Rocky, or slice the load. The second thing was you saying all that stuff and how much like despair and challenges that you said previously that the gunslinger goes through. It made me want to watch a 3-hour version of this, because if I see him going through so much shit and then finally getting the tower destroyed, that would have been so satisfying after that 2 hours and 50 minutes or something, if it was that long.
Well, there is a world, probably very near our own, where we have that amazing 3-hour version of this Stephen King's magnum opus, but it is not this world, unfortunately.
Well, what did you, one of the third or second-ish last questions, what did you think of the action sequences, Dakota Wayne Barber says? I think they're good, but I don't think there were enough of them.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, there weren't enough. I agree with that. But you know what? In this case, let me actually turn around and say something positive, because I don't want to just completely crap all over this film like it was the worst film ever. There were some things that were nice, and a lot of them did come in the form of some of those action sequences. We talked about the one in the town where he makes this great shot to save Jake from a would-be abductor of his. Yeah, that was really cool. And, I mean, it was a little corny, but, at the end of the film, there's this kind of semi-nifty thing where, always Roland had been shooting at Walter, the Man in Black, and, Walter could just pick the bullets out of the air, boom, 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 boom. Yeah, so you can't touch him. So he does this little trick shot at the end where he shoots the bullet, when he looks to be down and out, he shoots the bullet at Walter, and then as the bullet is still in flight and Walter is getting ready to catch it, he shoots again, and the bullet hits the first bullet, and they boom, veer off, and one of them hits Walter right in the heart. Yeah. And that's, it's kind of cool. The trick shot cool. Plus the, I don't know if you noticed it, but the, his reloading trick where he like boom, 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 fingers in bullets into his chamber like so quick. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
That's one of the main reasons why I was like, this guy must be like the greatest person with a gun I've ever seen in a movie ever.
And it was neat. If only we had established it earlier, which is one of the advantages of the earlier script, where you have the scene in Tull, an early action sequence where Roland can be, mowing down all of the townspeople of Tull, and you get to see his amazing. They even describe it in the script, and it's like people are shooting at him, and it's this ballistic ballet where he's just moving through them like a swimmer through water. They describe it, and it sounds like it'd be pretty cool. Right. That would have been nice within the first 20-25 minutes of the film to see something like that. But here we don't get that cool stuff until the second half, right? Which is a bit of a shame,
right? We're kind of just thrown in, and we already know like this guy is a gunslinger, and like, oh, we know about his mythology, but we don't see it.
Yeah, you're telling us, but you're not showing us until later on.
Exactly. That would have been great if there's some kind of like little action sequence to start it off with. Mm-hmm. The film starts off with just establishing the plot, like Matthew McConaughey's character is evil, and they're taking these children and they're screaming to kill the tower. It's like it might have been great if somehow like maybe the gunslinger is there trying to like he's killing a bunch of people, and then And then he gets thrown away into the abyss or whatever.
Yeah, that would be great. There was also, I also want to say on the positive side that there was some good humor in the second. Yeah, especially you can't go wrong with a fish out of water moment. So when Roland gets drawn back into our world now, he's now in New York with Jake. Mm-hmm. There's a whole bunch of really great bits. I think my favorite of all is he needs to get treatment at a hospital, and in the old script that's because he has 2 of his fingers killed and he's got a blood infection in him. But here it's just because I don't know, he's tired. So they give him an IV in the hospital, and he's like, the doctors are all around him like, who are you? And he's like, all right, I'm getting up. And they're like, no, you got to stay down. He's like, no, I got to go and pay you. He pays him with a silver coin. There's just like, for your services. That's great. There's all kinds of good stuff like that. Yeah,
there's a funny gun shop scene.
Oh, yeah, the gun shop is great.
I kept on thinking in my head, what, the Colt 45? Oh, yeah, sure. We're going to come on, close early today. What do you want? All.
Yeah, definitely.
So some Easter eggs. My friend Sickleclaw asks, he wants to know how many times did they show the number 19?
Yeah, we see a lot of the number 19.
I think I saw it's like only. I mean, I was trying to pay attention to the story rather than like looking for Easter egg stuff. I only think I saw it was 1919 for like the portal number.
Yeah, there was 1919 on the portal. There was some graffiti with 1919 as well. There's actually much more references to 19 in the book, in the script. I'm sorry to keep referencing that script, but
go ahead.
They actually have a whole thing in Tull where an episode from the original book where the Man in Black resurrects this sort of a druggie in Roland's world, but he curses him with this knowledge of the world of the dead, and the word that unlocks that knowledge is 19. Ooh. So yeah, it's all about 19 becomes thing. You see a lot of that. There's other little references in there that you would really have to be a book fan to catch. Did you notice when they were, again, in that hospital scene, there was this one moment where Roland and Jake in New York were watching the television and there were talking raccoons on the television?
Yeah, I didn't get that.
Yeah, and I know you wouldn't, because that's the trouble with this film. It doesn't really commit to anything. He turns to Jake. He's like, "They're still talking. There's still talking animals in your world?"
Right.
And Jake's like, "What do you mean still?"
Yeah.
And what that means is one of the characters, quote unquote, in the Dark Tower series is a little creature called a Billy Bumbler. And there's one that travels with the gunslinger called Oi. And he's almost like a parrot. He can repeat things. He's he's like semi-intelligent, not like Rocket Raccoon intelligent where he can use guns, but semi-intelligent, can repeat things. So it's kind of a little wink, wink, nod, nod to that. So that but it doesn't really commit to it. Did you notice other references?
I definitely noticed the 1408 number.
Yeah.
Maybe a couple of the ones I forget, but other than that, I didn't remember. I haven't seen Shawshank in a while, I think.
Yeah, there was the Rita Hayworth poster in the gun shop. So that's Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption, the novella. The smiley face that we see on the wall in Jake's bedroom after his, they come in to discover his mother's been killed.
Yeah.
Yeah, left by that. Yeah, that's the signature of the killer in Mr. Mercedes, which is one of the newer books. And probably one that's most relevant for us film lovers, because of course, pretty soon we're going to get It.
Yes.
Which actually looks like an A-level Stephen King adaptation. Yes. Very excited for that. If you look at there's this one part early on where Jake's in Roland's world, and there's sort of this like dilapidated amusement park that they're in. Yeah, there's a little iron wrought sign that he's standing under at one point, and if you look at it, you can see it's in backwards. It's Pennywise.
Ooh.
And of course, being the name of the evil clown in It.
Wow, I did not notice that. So last one, Sickleclaw asked that I have no idea of, but you probably will. Did they refer to Walter as Flag?
No, and they do in the script. They call him They call him Walter. They call him Flag. They call him the Walking Dude. A lot of his titles that are but in this film, No. It's only Walter, the Man in Black.
Yeah,
that's it.
I honestly only remember him as Men in Black, and maybe they said Walter a couple times.
Yeah, and the reason probably that you're being asked the question is Randall Flagg is the primary villain from Stephen King's The Stand, which for my money is, I mean, it's arguable, but it might be my favorite single Stephen King book. I mean, it is obviously great, but The Stand, the post-apocalyptic, the disease that comes and destroys 99% of Earth's population, and the herald of that disease, and then the eventual leader of the forces of evil in the aftermath is this character called Randall Flagg, or the Walking Dude, as they call him. And what we eventually learn in later books, The Stand was written in between like the first and the second book in the series. Okay. So in the first book, there's no association at all between the Man in Black and this Randall Flagg of The Stand. But in later books, when Stephen starts getting a little meta here, he starts bringing in little elements from all his books. And one of the most interesting elements that you particularly see in book 4, Wizard and Glass, is that Roland and his group cross over into a post-apocalyptic 1990 America where everybody is dead.
Wow.
And the reason is because they've crossed over into The Stand. They're now actually in The Stand, the book. And in that book, the major villain is Randall Flagg, and we eventually learn out that Randall Flagg is the Man in Black. They are the same character.
Wow.
Yes, I know. It's the whole. There's a whole Kingverse out there that's really it's really neat, and I would love to see these kinds of things happen. And that's why I'm so disappointed that this film was just so mediocre and is probably going to end up, doing marginal business at the box office, not enough to really warrant going anywhere for here. Because there's a great. I mean, if only they had put the time and the resources that this series deserved, I think it's very likely that we could have seen something amazing, a crossover with more and more great Stephen King works. Now I think it's going to kind of disappear into the night.
Yeah, I was going to say hell yeah to you, except those last couple words. Yeah, I think I agree. It's going to be really sad. I don't think this movie is going to make much money. It's $60 million. It might make 100, 150.
Yeah. Basically, you're probably looking at needing to make anywhere from 150 to 200 million just to get back into the black, and they're going to be hard pressed.
They're going to want probably 300 at least to be we'll go with the sequel. I forgot one Easter egg question. Best Bug asks, because I didn't notice this at all, I didn't see any mist in the movie. He asked, is the mist seen in the trailer the same mist from The Mist?
No.
Yeah.
No, that's a no.
Yeah, I don't know anything. So our last question from Steve Rogers. We've talked about this whole podcast, but we need to solidify it. John, is it as good as the book or books?
I think by now that it should be pretty clear that the answer is hell no. It's not even close. And I would love to. And I guess my final word on this subject is I do not believe that it is the responsibility of the storyteller who is adapting a story to faithfully adhere to the material that he is adapting. Mm-hmm. I don't believe that is a requirement. So if you are Akiva Goldsman here and you are thinking, okay, I want to do The Dark Tower, but I want to put my own stamp on it. I want it to be my thing. You know what? Fine. You have that right. God bless you. That's totally cool. What I would say is if you're making that choice, in that case, you are applying a lot of pressure on yourself.
Yeah.
Because if you choose to adhere to the material and things don't work out, sure, you're going to catch flack. But if you choose to hew your own path, throw out the old material, just make your own stuff, and it turns out to be not very good, as we have here, you are opening yourself up to be you're putting a target on your back is what you're doing. Yeah. And that's what I see here. This is a bastardized version of two of the books in this series. It's not a good version of either of those books. And honestly, I cannot recommend it for lovers. If you are a book lover, I cannot recommend it for you. You're probably just going to come away really frustrated.
Now, is there any other topics you'd like to discuss before we do our final thoughts?
Well, mainly, I just want to say thanks for having me on. This has been a lot of fun, and I would love to do this again. I've had a great time.
Oh, dude, absolutely. This has been a fantastic conversation. So I just had my last paragraph that I was going to tell the people. If you liked Book of Henry, if you did see that film, no spoilers for that, don't worry. Because you suspended your belief that it was like truly like a real world, and you enjoyed that film because it had like a lot of heart and message behind it, like I did. You'll like The Dark Tower. But if you hated Book of Henry because the kid was like, super smart and responsible, the mom wasn't, etc., and some other things happened in the film, you might not like The Dark Tower. Stephen King, he writes some weird shit, and you either love it or you don't. If you're an overall fan of King, you might like the movie. If you're a hardcore fan that has read all the books, you might not. If you're a casual moviegoer, you might not. If the world built may be too much for you to handle, but you do see superhero films where they fight robots in the sky every year, so that's not too much of a grassroots difference. So I don't know. I think Dark Tower is overall a decent film. Like I said, I give it 6 out of 10, and I can recommend it for people. I would actually like you to go to the theater and see the movie and see for yourself, pay the money to see it, and support the movie, because I would actually like to see more.
Yeah, I want to throw my hat into the ring, too. I didn't like it as much as you, and I'd probably end up with about a 4.5 on my score, and yet I echo what you just said. You know what? If you're on the fence, if you're not certain, go see it. Go see it because maybe they didn't knock it out of the park here. They didn't, in my opinion, knock it out of the park here. But there's still a rich world waiting to be explored. And if you don't go see this film, and if it tanks at the box office, you're never going to get to see that. So you know what? It's $10, guys. Go ahead, make it a night. It's not such a bad loss.
No, it's really not. And it's kind of sad. I've been watching Rotten Tomatoes since last nightish. 11 o'clock was the embargo. Didn't make it in time, but it was at like 22% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, really?
And now it dropped even more. It's at 20%. I don't think that's warranted at all.
That's getting, even I wouldn't give it that harsh. And we're starting to get into emoji movie territory here.
Oh my God. I think that's, hold on. I gotta go back to it. I think that was on 0. I don't know what it's on right now. Damn it. It's on 6%. What the hell? What the hell?
There is no God.
It was probably Armin White. No, there is a God.
Armin. Damn you, Armin.
I didn't look, but I was just assuming. Thank you once again very much, John, for coming on the podcast. I will absolutely 110%, maybe for Wind River.
That'd be one we're all looking forward to that one.
Oh, hell yeah. That was on my top 10 looking forward to. I think it was on yours as well.
It was.
Yeah, so I'm absolutely going to have you on again. We're going to set up some John with some social media pages one time so you guys can talk to him on the internet as well if you'd like to.
That'd be great. Thanks for having me, Matthew. This was a lot of fun.
It was awesome. Thank you, John. Thanks, guys, for listening. I will catch you on the next one. Bye.
End of line.
Good luck and congratulations on choosing
Darkness.
Regret to have the American ambassador expelled after the incident. The U.S. State Department responded quickly with a formal apology